Are you an American citizen? Do you often wonder what your rights are as such? Well, ponder no more. The Bill of Rights are the first 10 amendments added to the Constitution. They were added to protect the basic freedoms of the American individual and prevent the government from having too much power. Not all Americans are aware of the rights they have. I would like to help you understand why the Bill of Rights are important and why you should know them.
I'm expecting my rights.
The First Amendment allows you to express your opinion and make your voice heard.
I'm expecting the rights.
The Second Amendment is the right to bear arms. This amendment protects the right of the people to keep and bear arms. It provides American citizens with security. The Third Amendment is the right to deny housing for soldiers during peacetime. Prior to the Revolutionary War, the British forced Americans to provide lodging and food for the soldiers. Due to the resentment that emerged from this, Americans now have the right to refuse housing for soldiers.
Hi, I'm a soldier and I get to stay at your house.
And the right to say no. Sorry.
The Fourth Amendment protects citizens of searches of their bodies, possessions, and/or homes. Warrants must be issued by a judge with a plausible reason.
I'm the police and I want to look in your bag.
No, you can't. The Fourth Amendment prohibits such action.
Hi guys, and welcome to my home. I'm going to be talking about the Fifth Amendment, so let's begin. So the Fifth Amendment, that's the right of the accused, due process of the law, and eminent domain. So let's begin with the rights of the accused. So the Fifth Amendment protects the rights of anyone accused of a crime. It assumes that everyone is innocent until proven guilty. In some countries, it is the exact opposite. Suspects must prove that they are innocent when a person is accused of a crime for which the punishment could be death. The Fifth Amendment requires that a grand jury look at the charges before the person can be brought to trial. A grand jury is a group of citizens who decide if there's enough evidence to try a person. It is intended to prevent people from being falsely accused of a serious crime. Today, grand jury consider most serious criminal charges. The Fifth Amendment also states the person cannot be tried twice for the same crime. So, the section of the Fifth Amendment that has received the most publicity is the guarantee against self-incrimination. This means that people cannot be forced to testify against themselves. Under the Fifth Amendment, law enforcement officials must produce the evidence necessary to convict a person of the crime. The accused person cannot be made to provide it. In earlier times, people were tortured until they confessed to crimes they may have not even committed. The guarantee against self-incrimination makes sure that unfair pressure cannot be used to make a person confess. The right to remain silent also protects innocent people. During the 1950s, the government became really concerned about communists. Politicians held hearings in which people were asked which organizations they had been joining and who their friends were. If they answered that they had been involved in certain groups or friendships, they were accused of being communist. At times, the accusations became wild and unfounded. Many people took refuge in the Fifth Amendment protection against self-incrimination. Some perhaps were communists who might have wished to see the government overthrown. Others, however, were innocent citizens who had been caught up in a hysterical moment. The Constitution protected them against ruthless accusations. Alright guys, now we're going to move on to due process of the law. Another section of the Fifth Amendment holds that no one can be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. In other words, the government must follow certain legal procedures before deciding on a penalty. It can't just jail a person because it suspects that the person committed a crime. It must prove the accusation by following certain rules and methods. However, due process of law is a rather vague and general term. As times have changed, so has its meaning. In later years, to discourage publicity stunts and other distractions, only artists and reporters were allowed to be present in court. Now some judges permit television cameras to record trials. How might the presence or absence of cameras affect a defendant's right to due process, you may ask? And now we're moving on to the third part of the Fifth Amendment, eminent domain. Finally, the Fifth Amendment requires the government to pay citizens when it takes over their property for a public use. The government's right to take this property is called eminent domain. Suppose a state wanted to build a highway which would run through your residence. It would have to pay the owners a reasonable price for the property. The government would force you to move, but at least it would have to provide you with the money to relocate. Alright guys, let's go out into the public and see if they know what the next amendments are.
More requirements for a trial in criminal cases. It guarantees a speedy public trial by an impartial jury in the area where the crime was committed. The defendant must be able to question the accusers and to force favorable witnesses to testify. The accused has a right to a lawyer.
The Seventh Amendment guarantees that Americans will receive a jury trial in civil as opposed to criminal cases involving property worth more than $20.
The Eighth Amendment protects people from having to pay unreasonably high bail in order to be released from prison before they go to trial. What is bail? Well, bail is the money given to plead that a person accused of a crime will appear for their trial. The Eighth Amendment also protects people from unreasonably high fines. And finally, it outlaws cruel and unusual punishment.
The last two amendments address the liberties of citizens and the rights of states. The Ninth Amendment states that the Constitution and the Bill of Rights do not define all the fundamental rights people have. Such rights exist whether or not they are defined. The 10th Amendment makes a similar claim concerning the rights of the states. It holds that the states and the people have powers that are set aside. Such rights exist whether or not they are defined. The 10th Amendment makes a similar claim concerning the rights of the states. It holds that the states and the people have powers that are set aside.